Welcome to another episode of The Dugout. Hello, hello, hello. I'm already a little stoned. I just took a few sips of my beer. I'm excited for what we're going to be watching today because we haven't done a movie review episode in a while. And today we're going to watch Set It Off.
The perpetrator doesn't sit well with us.
Do you know Lorenz and them got away with 20 grand? That's what we need to do. Rob a bank.
Which was released in November 1996. It features Queen Latifah, Jada Pinkett Smith, Vivica Fox, Kimberly Elise, among other actors. And I would describe it as essentially a film about four Black women who have been longtime friends who deal with the obstacles of living in the inner city, of working, labor, being mistreated, which eventually leads them to go on a bank heist.
I don't know yet. Bank heist. Okay.
Yeah, so essentially
I've never seen this movie.
Okay, yeah. So you haven't seen it. I guess like we were just talking about this, but what would you say your connection is to 90s Black media, films from the 90s? Are there many that you have seen that you could think of, or because you were saying like, "Oh, I'd like to see more," but I'm just wondering like aside from this film, do you have like a larger connection?
Have not watched a lot of 90s Black media. The most I ever watched was when I was like 12 and I was locked up or in a mental hospital. And we had movie nights and would watch a shit ton of like Friday and other things from that kind of era. And really mainly those kinds of things. And that was
Like stoner, black comedy. Like,
yeah,
not as dramatic necessarily, but
and there was some dramatic shit. There was hella ghetto shit, man. There was so much church, like Black church. One's gay, one's not. No, they weren't gay. They were the women were just like modern versus traditional.
Oh, like more progressive.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch any of the Tyler Perry plays?
No.
That were okay. That's another area of Black media.
There were a couple Tyler Perry ones, but I don't think they liked them because I don't think they probably liked the idea of a man dressing up in a. They were probably a little
transphobic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not saying Tyler Perry's not transphobic.
Yeah, we don't gotta go there.
Yeah, we don't gotta.
Because we can also go into who is Tyler Perry. Really, is Tyler Perry?
That's not the
Will
episode
Smith,
today.
also Tyler Perry, because there is a theory online about that. But we're not digging into our conspiracy episode today. Let us know if you want a conspiracy episode because we've been talking about that for a while. But basically, we're gonna watch Set It Off today. Once again, I'm interested in like watching films, looking at radical depictions of Black life. And one of the reasons that I personally love Set It Off, I've probably seen it like 6, 7, 8 times. I love that it's such a strong representation of Black female friendship. I love that it explores community care. I love that it explores PTSD. And it also explores like, I don't know, like the ways that women contend with violence and how a lot of their responses to violence based on the situation can be entirely justified and how that can be wholly criminalized by the system. And it's just such a, there's so many scenes in this movie where I'm like, yeah, that's where you get him. And Vivica Fox in this movie, Jada Pinkett Smith, everyone, all of the leads just hit it out of the park as well. And there's one of my favorite scenes of Black people like hanging out together in a movie, among other like things, is there's a scene of them smoking weed on the rooftop and just hanging out, and I love that scene. So we're gonna watch Set It Off and kind of give our thoughts and feedback as we're watching it, and probably also do like a second part maybe as well, just like we did with Judas and the Black Messiah. If you haven't heard that episode, you should also check out that one. Anything else you want to add?
I'm also Stony Baloney, and I'm on my third glass of wine. It's 2:30 p.m. Let's get this done.
Okay, here we go. Cue the transition music, and then maybe we put a break in here where it's like, if you're listening to The Dugout, please consider supporting us on blah blah blah. Okay, cool.
Wait, we should after this we should record a reel together saying
okay, yeah, we could upload it, yeah, because it could be on one of these. We could put it on one of the nicer cameras.
We could do it right now.
I mean, after. I don't want.
You want to hit a thumbnail?
I've heard people do thumbnails.
Come on. We can just post a photo of this. Set It Off. And then you can give us both emo music, because there's also an emo band named Set It Off that I used to listen to.
There is. Okay.
Yeah. It's come full circle.
Okay, here we go. Set it off.
Maybe I'll give us emo here. I'll draw it on really, really terribly.
Dead anyways? Maybe that's the way to go. Firing off a nod.
We're just taken away from the system that's doing us all anyway. Well, what if something goes wrong? What if somebody gets hurt? Let's do it.
And I'm not saying Darnell was a good guy. I don't know what he was doing in the projects. All I know is I just had to watch another nigga get shot by the cops. And it's gonna be free him. It's gonna be his life matter. I'm gonna be in the streets the same as much as if them niggas were innocent. Even though he just shot some white woman in front of his old friend's face, got blood all over this bank teller's face, and that's gonna set off this whole movie. And I think a lot about this dynamic in the film of we're seeing an example of a very violent masculine robbery filled by a certain touch of desperation. So I'm curious how they implement this sort of desperation within the other characters and contrast and compare with how they're setting themes of how heists can go.
Yeah, I mean, I think even getting into it, I'm also trying to analyze this from what I feel like you're probably experiencing / like what I anticipate. But it's interesting that already it's a woman with a job of responsibility. Guy from a neighborhood shows up. He literally doesn't care about what this will mean or do for her. He's using his connection to her in the community to his advantage. And I mean, I won't speak too much ahead, but I love how this movie looks at, respects, and kind of uses women's responsibility as a plot device. And so each of these women that you'll see throughout the film have some sense of responsibility that ties them to the community or like hurts them in some way or XYZ. And a lot of this movie is about these women trying to liberate themselves. And so what does it mean that this whole thing is instigated by a fucking black dude? I wonder what it says. That we ain't shit? Or me. Or like the collective we. I don't fucking know. Like we ain't shit? I don't know. Because it's like also like, and maybe this is digging too deep, drawing too many. But I'm like, what do we think about the BLA? Their strategies of expropriation, their strategies of going into drug houses, crack houses, throwing shit out. Like, what form of community destabilization is for liberation and what form isn't? And I think what this movie kind of presents is that for these women to fight for themselves, to defend themselves, that's liberatory because it's against all of these other systems against them. For a black man to do this, especially while exploiting his connection to a black woman, it's not really revolutionary. It's criminalized. It can be considered like outlaw behavior. If I'm bringing in some of my own ideas about like outlaw versus revolutionary or XYZ, but I know it's interesting.
At this point, I don't even know that Darnell knew that this person worked there, and that's why they hit this bank.
They did.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's
it's
good
like
to know.
she was like, "Hey, brother, blah blah blah." Like they knew each other.
Yeah, but he was not reacting like they knew each other. He reacted like still looking around. Then we got to see the rest of the bank and who was in
She
there.
ain't shit.
and
She's just an invisible woman in the background. That
exactly. That's
could be
why I didn't
brought
know it
out.
was purposeful, because I was like,
Just wait until the next scene.
he doesn't look shook, but he sure as hell.
No, we should watch the next. We got to.
I know, I'm going.
What
Go
happens
ahead.
right after this? You're about to be. Oh Lord.
That's all.
And we just watched the scene after the robbery, essentially, where the cops are interrogating Vivica Fox's character
In the bank.
and it's a bunch of white people. They're in the bank. She's still got blood on her clothes, and they're like,
One
"Do
sister.
you know this procedure? Like, why didn't you do the procedure?" And Vivica Fox is like, I was almost shot. I was blown away. Like, what do y'all? And she was going to follow this procedure, but then someone was literally murdered in front of her and she gets fired on the spot. And there's only one black person in the room and it's a woman and she's drinking water. And as Vivica Fox leaves, she's like, you ain't even bother to give me a drink of water. Or you didn't even bother to ask me if I was thirsty, sister.
And
what?
she is a sister. That's a black cop in the room, a black lower management,
With her little
a
silk-
white
with her
lower
silk
management
press.
femme
With her
and
silk
the
press.
silk press. That was on.
And what I love about that scene is that it shows like how we are all cogs in a larger machine. She's a worker who's shown that she's dedicated. She's showed up sharp every day. She's done her job. And at this point where she is in crisis, she has witnessed a murder simply because she's black and this dude is black. And basically they're saying, because you and this dude is black, you gotta fucking go. And it's just, and I don't even know how to name what that is, but it very much is like a white work culture thing. Like the fact that they were all like the people around her in the room can't even like look at her really. Like the white lady in the back was like turning her head away, and I just love that scene because
That's white guilt.
it shows like a break with respectability, or like whatever can be received as like respectability or stability, because after this point in the movie, Vivica Fox's character, she does not give a fuck. And I love that this is the part where I don't know, and I love that this movie doesn't start with you needing to invest in having any real faith in the system. Like it just, the status quo is this, but this inciting incident reveals it essentially. And so I don't know. And so I do like that they don't start the movie from a point where she's like, her character is being uppity or like it's like, this is the reality. And I do like that this inciting incident kind of exposes that, and embedded in that are these two different kind of forms of black people turning against each other, black on black crime. The dude that came in to rob the bank knew her from her neighborhood. The cop, that's class violence right there in another way. So it's interesting to look at it in that perspective and to see how these women tried to escape the violence of their racialization, their gender, their class. Like it's such a good, I like also that this movie is just such a good story. Like it's not even about their radical action. It's more about these are human beings and their choices are justified. If you really like read and understand and appreciate the humanity that this movie offers them. You ain't even asked me if I was thirsty, sister.
Yeah, no, and that's what I love. She got to like really, it's a rupture in the self. Like in a moment, blood covered, somebody just murdered in front of me. I tried to do the procedure, and now this cop is doing a one-man theater show in front of me, trying to shame me, scare me, and dominate me into giving them exactly what they want.
The way you told her to shut up, I'd be like, oh.
That's what I mean. And anything is a violence. If they'll look away at him treating me like this, what else will they look away from? And have they? So this was a rupture and a breaking point for, I guess, the whole character. And they got to tell off the cops. They got to tell off their manager. They got to tell off their boss. And they got to tell off the class trading, race trading pig with the silk press.
I love when you say something and I'm like, that's going to be the intro. You said the race trading, clash trading pig with the. And I just started trying to think of an actual pig in my brain with the silk press. Oh my goodness! I'm glad we got the fan on. I'm sweating. Oh.
The wine hitting me. The weed hitting me.
Silk press. Pig with the silk press. That has to be on a tote bag.
I need that.
That's gonna be in our merch. That's a sticker, yeah.
I like the labor things going on there. That scene.
Describe the scene. So.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. So it was a scene where they were at Luther's janitorial, and I believe it's like 3 of the off-cast. One girl, Tashawn, she's getting fired for not recycling properly. And it's scaring the white folks. So this company's got to cover its ass, so they decided to fire this person, and basically just this whole narrative of these 2 other people that are these 2 other femmes that are like standing strong while this person's getting fired. And like the way the boss was trying to use like certain divisions around like things that they feel like they can shame people on. Like they were body shaming. Oh, what's the actor's name?
Queen Latifah. Who's now an out lesbian in the industry finally after like 30 years.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. Queen Latifah's been queer this whole time. It's been like people kind of knew, but like I think there was a speech that they did at an award show like 2 or 3 years ago where they're like, me and my partner, and they showed up to the event, people knowing that was their partner. But you know, it's kind of like been industry understood. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. The more you know. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the way the boss talks is like what I feel like a lot of black radicals are scared of when they are trying to show up for even themselves, which I think is like maybe a part of Tashawn's story of like, we're having all these crises. We can barely, like you said, you were going to pay me under the table so I could pay for my babysitter, and now you're not doing it. And I can't afford to do like this supposedly productive labor for the state and for capital, but the real productive labor is making sure my kids are fed and everything else. So that's why I need to engage in this other form, or why like this other form needed to be under the table in certain aspects, and why they even took this like labor upon themselves.
Yeah.
And like the way they said, like, what exactly did that nigga say? The way he said it was something that I was like, I feel like if I like tried to talk even just like basic socialism with some black people, that's exactly what they would say to me.
Like these go white people, like
No, he said it right at the end of it.
it was like take your broke ass home if you want a different if you can't.
Oh yeah, well if you don't, that's I feel like that's such a big thing.
I mean, he's the boss.
In community,
he owns the company. It's like when white people are like people with more money are like. It's like I don't know when we were in
the way
the
it was said, it was just so black. I was like, that's my homie.
But think about this: when we
somebody
were,
like
when I was looking at that apartment, we were talking to the guy touring us, and he was like, "Yeah, one of the best ways that anyone can stabilize their wealth is to get housing." And I think about any time that any person really says that to me, but it's usually because if a black person says it to me, I'll be like, "Oh, okay, I get what you're saying."
Yeah.
But like when white people say it to me, I'm like, am I your child? The paternalism or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it's usually men. Because I've never had like I've never had a white woman tell me like one of the best ways that you can stabilize your wealth is to acquire housing. It's always white men, and so I don't know. I guess I just think about like the hierarchical relationship of like economics and labor and how 15 minutes in we got to see this scene where it's like these workers who are friends are trying to stick up for each other. They have different personalities around it. But there still is, I like in each of these scenes, it's building up like, what are the antagonisms in their community? And there's different ways to look at the antagonisms. Like Jada Pinkett Smith is like trying to raise her brother, and I don't know, they're trying to work through how to afford school, and so there's all these different antagonisms that they're facing. What is it?
I think I ashed in my wine.
Okay, you straight. Okay, we are about 18 minutes in, and we just saw the scene where Jada Pinkett Smith's character needs to get money for her younger brother to go to college, so she ends up talking to this guy who owns a local auto shop, this creepy looking black dude, and
he basically says, "If you, I'll give you this money, I'll give you a job." Jada's like, "I need an advance." He says, "You get the advance if you get in my pants." He gets in the car and he's like, "We are gonna go and do this, right?" And she's like, "This ain't right. I really just need my money." Trigger warning. That's all I'm gonna say. And then we got to talking about how, what were you saying? Male sexuality is so much
of heteronormative male sexuality, compulsive heteronormativity, especially from the man's perspective, is about coercion. It's not about pleasure. It's why so many women I talk to are just like, men just want to stick it in, stroke, go in, go out, get their stuff in, and they don't care about foreplay. They don't care about pleasure. They don't care about like a slower intimacy. It's more transactional. And I think about like how, for me as a queer person, when did I start to learn about sexuality? Through my peers that were other boys. It was when they were pulling me aside and saying, here's how you hit on a girl. Here's how you joke about her having a tampon in. Here's how you say this weird shit and it's supposed to make her think. She's supposed to be thinking about it because it was mean, but you kind of said she was hot, and here we go. And I'm like, this is all shit that you learned from your fucking dad. And luckily, my dad was in prison, so I didn't really have to be
think about that a lot. I also grew up without.
I'm literally joking because that's a very dark comment, because I don't want to come across
it's
as
kind of real. I mean, how there's different ways of patriarchy that have been embedded in me because I grew up with solely a white woman and other people around me. The lack of certain father figures in my life means a certain level of it I didn't reflect on or get to reflect on and see a parental figure do. Like, there were still locker boys and other like male presenting people in school where I was like, okay, they're doing this and that, and like best friends I was having. But then again, I realized, I look back, a lot of my friends were queer and femme, and almost all my friends came out as trans before I did, and all my friends came out as queer or gay before I did, and I was always just like, is that me? Imposter syndrome. So I'm just like,
I just think of how much I love this movie, and how a part of that is because there's, I don't know, there's not many good men in this movie, and that's fine. That's literally fine to me. I mean, it's almost like I'm almost clapping. No, and I guess I just mean that in the maybe this is getting maybe a little too deep on a gender level, but if anyone's read Masculinities by Raywin Cowell, I think is the name of the author, but she talks a lot in that book about different perspectives on how men come into masculinity, how a lot of that is through violence, whether it's putting violence on other people, receiving violence through like the like side trauma of like women in our lives who project their perception of manhood onto us or XYZ. And so I just think about like how for me it's gratifying to see a movie that is about the Black community where it's not fucking just praising men. And there's so many films that I feel like older people in my family love, or like Tyler, I don't know. And so it's just interesting to me, like why I can think about why I like this movie, because it's like it's about these women trying to disentangle themselves from a world that's literally trying to destroy them. And at critical points in this, it's usually a man who's trying to destroy them, or maybe once in a while aiding in their journey. And so I don't know. It's just, yeah, I almost want to set it off too. And I don't actually want it because I feel like a streaming service or a modern audience would like fucking bastardize it. But I almost actually do want to set it off too, because I'm like, it's actually relevant in terms of an economic level. If you look at the world that we live in, like what if 4 Black girls who were in student debt and had to drop out of medical school ended up all fucking robbing a bank together? What if it was Spring Breakers, but it was Black girls? I'd love that. We're 30 minutes in. Stevie's younger, I guess Jada Pinkett Smith's younger brother has just been offed by the police. Super sad scene, super traumatic, super dark. The fact that this is in the movie and it's handled in this way, I always appreciated that it's very clearly a mistake on the police part. They're incompetent. They have suspects based on racialization. They barely can fucking check the skin tone, the height, build, whoever the fuck they're looking for, XYZ. And then, I don't know. I also just love the fact that Jada Pinkett Smith's character isn't like, I don't know. Of course, it's horrible, terrifying. You'll see her grieve, but like, she's like, fuck you, you pig. And the fact that, and I guess I just mean in terms of Black media representation, police brutality, police violence, usually in the film, it's the Black family sitting down in the living room, sad, like forlorn, blah, blah, blah. Or there's like a individual confrontation with the police officer, but to do it in community, to do it in front of people you care about, to, I don't know, to view confrontation as a breaking point, I think as well. It's like, how often do movies show Black people reaching their breaking point in relation to the police? And because you see it with white people all the time. You see all kinds of movies about white serial killers or XYZ, but I'm like, Blackness in contrast to the police, outside of like it's a drug dealing drama. Like, I don't know. And so I guess I also respect that it's like literally about this like brutal and real rage in a moment where I don't know. I guess I just really think about like after
This
Michael
movie came out.
Or no, I'm also thinking about 2014. Michael Brown was killed, and I remember awaiting the verdict for the cop that killed him, Darren Wilson. And I remember reading the news, and the dad was, and I think Michael Brown's stepdad was like, I just want everyone to be peaceful, no matter what the, or no, what was it? No, after the verdict came out, the dad was like, burn it down. He said that to a crowd of people. And later on, the police tried to hold him culpable. And I think about all these other narratives around like, after someone is killed, it's so common for the family to go on press conference and for them to be like, we just want peace and we want resolution. And maybe this sounds fucked up to say, but I think we've talked about this before about how with police brutality, I really believe in like, of course, respecting the family's wishes and the individual kind of response that they come to. But I'm like, it's also a collective harm. And I wonder why Black people coach ourselves into just needing to survive it, as opposed to like, what does this actually mean?
Is it a respectability thing? Especially keeping it within such close-knit things to the clan? The kin?
I was like,
clan.
wait, what?
Oh my God. Ugh. No, I just mean like the family unit being where solidarity kind of meets the end for a lot of sort of heteronormative family relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see in more oppressed communities or more colonized communities, or you can see in honestly just multiple communities around the world, not European,
Yeah.
that that's not true.
Yeah,
And there is a sort of respectability.
I guess here's what I'll say. When black people don't learn how to process our rage, they point it inward. They point it at their children. You beat the shit out of your kids. You tell them not to wear certain things. They can't walk around in their neighborhoods. They have to do this. They have to be careful. They have to blah, blah, blah. If it fucking happens to you, it's your fault. And I feel like that's the other side of respectability to me, where I'm like, is it respectability? I maybe it's not the most accurate way to describe it. To me, it's also more about like what respectability leads to, and how a part of what it requires is like this turning away from a certain very real aspect of why this violence happens, and then also a demand that we put boundaries around our response, that we have to be human in order to be seen as human, even though the system literally sees us as inhuman. And so even in our response to rage, grief, violence, we have to show them our humanity. And I guess in terms of like why I respect this movie in terms of like what it's representing is like, I don't know. I think the rage of like what abolition, and when I think about abolition, people are like, oh, like it's not realistic or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let's actually talk about what has fucking happened to our community. Let's talk about slavery. Let's talk about segregation, all of the invisible violences there. And then let's begin to even talk about incarceration, about being surveyed in your own community, about like, I'm thinking about like my brother driving home from Tower City Mall in Cleveland and getting stopped once a week by cops, being fined in a mall for charging his phone for using public electricity. That happened to him when he was 17. And I'm like, how do we talk about all of the other forms of violence and how, if you actually analyze it, the most justified response is revolting back in some shape or form, on a theoretical level, if I want to add that in.
And a material one.
I just really respect, because I'm like, how many movies do I get to see where black people respond like this in like this kind of narrative, kind of like formation, and especially narrative with women? I don't know. I appreciate it. I'm like, ooh, Lord, like this is a brutal scene. It's brutal.
Yeah, no, I'm a little still struck by the scene, but I appreciate a lot of the rage. Yeah. And like just the expression of it, like that it flows so freely and it's confident. It's like, oh, maybe I've been holding myself back in certain ways, or maybe even not. I'm just trying to fucking survive. And here is what I'll go through, and the state being its cold machinery, especially with the auxiliary format of the state that is the cops, and the way that they function, they can choose to act just as human or just as cold or just as human in any moment, and it's however they want to coerce you into what they need done.
Yeah. And I also like that this movie isn't trying to show you like a good cop. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't really seen that. Like, the black lady, you already got a home vendetta against her because you called her a pig with a silk press.
Okay, I'm going to say right now, my personal my personal headcanon is that this movie could have ended right here, and it could have been the fucking whoever's character had a brother just die, kills this
It could have been
cop.
Queen and Slim.
I'm gonna just say that it could have been. So after the cops like, oh, we're gonna give a full investigation into what happened, and the person who had their brother shot is like, fuck your investigation. She's covered in her brother's blood and is ready to maul this cop to death with her own fucking hands, nails, feet, teeth, fucking anything. And her friends are holding her back a little bit, like, no, it's not worth it. Don't do it. But you know who really stops it?
The black lady.
The black, race-trading, class-trading, silk-pressed pig. She comes in like, oh, I'm not going to stop. Yeah, she comes in and she's like, And my headcanon is that if it weren't for that pig, again.
There would have been a bigger crowd of people going after that white dude.
Mm-hmm. And then again, they all would have probably got shot. He's gonna get me.
Bro, I gotta talk about. We are 52 minutes in, and I will say, Jada Pinkett's love interest in this, I am trying to control the saliva coming out of my throat, because the way he's approaching her, it's kind of like He respects her. He has a little bit of his own personality. Like, I don't like his class and blah, blah, blah. But she calls him out on it. And I don't know. I think he's teasing her in a way that's respectful. Even though, like, there's some tensions, blah, blah, blah. But she's holding her own. And, like, granted, like, further on in the relationship, it'd probably go downhill, and she'd be like, "You're a fucking rich man, and I think you think I'm a charity case." But at this point, I think they're learning about each other and navigating it. But I love the way that they're teasing each other, and it's just, oh,
It's cute. It's really cute.
wow.
Yeah, he's not my type, but the way he's talking.
He said, "I don't got no demands. I don't want nothing from you. I just want to listen to you." I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, for a second, I was like, am I that cheap? That's all I need? Oh my God.
I mean, no, it's actually not cheap. It's high value behavior. You're a high vibration plate, as they'd say in the Hotep community.
I don't want to talk about what they're saying in the Hotep community.
Oh, you're triggered by our internet interactions.
Okay, so they just had this Godfather scene after all of them were coming together through their struggles, doing a successful action together. One person backed out of the action. They tried to reconcile it with themselves and the relationships they've built outside of this affinity group. They practice good security culture when talking to their lovers, but they also... Some of them were popping off a little too much with the new money they had, so it caused a little bit of a strife.
Queen Latifah pulled a gun on her
and somebody pulled a gun on their fucking friend, and that shit was wild, and they got mad about it. I'm also not too happy that it's kind of all getting... I mean, it's a little all getting blamed on the drug use, but I'm like... Yeah.
Well, I guess here's a question. I guess and to put what I think some of what I think you're saying in another way is like, I guess, what do you think about the radical escalation that's being expressed? Do you think it's honest? Do you feel like it's leaning more towards cinema? Because I do feel like I like that there is a kind of escalation in terms of what each of them are willing to do. But I think about the fact that, I don't know, I haven't really seen this many depictions of this kind of radical behavior on screen in this way.
I think it's really cool. I like it. I think it works narratively. But I think from what I see right now, we're only an hour in. But
it's about to oh Lord.
You picked the right movie. Picked the right movie.
Let's just say the color purple is relevant. All my life I had to fight. That's what I'll say the second half of this movie is. Cause yeah, they each have their own journey. I'll say that.
But this coming together just made me think like they represented and did this like honestly kind of weird Italian thing, and then I realized they were going for Sopranos. But even
Godfather.
Yeah, Godfather. Yeah, and I was just like, okay. But it was really funny because I was like, this is their reconciliation process. This is a restorative process where we all sat down, we talked about the terms that we needed, and we set it points.
And it's necessary because their tactics are escalating. They're going for more money, and they know that things are getting serious, and in order for this to really happen, they need to come together as a collective to like figure out where their tensions are, figure out where the obstacles are, and how they're gonna set it off.
Yes.
And so to your point, I think it's cool because when things fall apart, I do think it is important for people to be able to process, not shove it aside, but to work through it in a way that allows you to come back stronger in whatever your goal or intent is. And I don't like in radical spaces where I've gone through conflict on some level and people have been like, the work matters more than any of this bullshit. I'm like, damn, tell me to shut the fuck up then. And I like that this didn't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
And it's when they're leaving the bank and they're all in their wigs bopping around in the cars. Like
2 minutes into this movie before we did another fucking reaction.
I love how funny that scene was. It's like, it didn't need to be that funny because they literally like just assaulted an Asian man.
No, that was terrible. Okay, so like
bopped over.
So they ran a car into a store, into the bank, and then they backed into another man, and it was a sushi shop where somebody was working working the whole counter, and they just got backed into because their whole job just got their car fucked into. And I was just like, what did I say? Why was Asian violence so accessible right there? Because, like, it did not need to be that. I don't know. You could have killed another white man right there.
It's like, why did he have to flop over?
God. Oh. But no, we're laughing because their fucking faces on their way out of this bank robbery is crazy.
They're doing this shit. They ain't playing. They're
But
like,
tell me, I feel like they cut some shit out of this. Because why did Cleo pull up like that? Because I feel like they didn't show that Cleo knew the cops were there. I feel like we just have to know. And maybe we don't need to know or see a scene, but I'm just like, Cleo, why the fuck did you run into the bank like that? Because if there were no cops there, would Cleo have done that? On some Cleo shit?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, here we go. Flip-flopping.
Oh, no. Okay, so we're at a scene an hour and 35 minutes in where they just robbed a bank again. It's their last bank robbery after so much conflict and throws and thrams and whatever the fuck is going on in this movie. But 3 of them round a corner. The cops come in the bank from the back while they're in the middle of robbing this bank. They meet them at this hallway, and the cops point their handguns at them. They're a 3-person group working right now with 2 handguns and an AK. And the motherfucker who's acting the most righteously hard and badass has the AK on them. And I'm just like, you see 2 cops around the corner in the middle of your last bank robbery after they just held you up for a fucking day? And you know what about cops? Even in 96, after all everything, you should have been, they shoot first.
I think they
still
see themselves as normal people. They're not outlaws. They're not revolutionaries. They're doing this for right now. They need to do this to get out. Killing a law enforcement officer is not a part of that equation. To them, I think they're not doing it right now because if they do that, they're crossing a line.
And I think that's what it's trying to say narratively. And all I'm gonna say is, if I have a gun in my hand and a cop points their gun at me, I know damn well I am racing against a clock for that nigga to pull their trigger. So I have no time to think whether it's okay. So, and they've represented blackness with the police in such good ways so far. I feel like this is shot. Like on some real nigga shit, shot. And that's not saying that that's like the best scenario, but that's what kind of like pulled it out of me with the critique that they've been holding. But also, they've only been doing this for a couple of weeks, and killing law enforcement is very hard. That's different.
Here's what I'll say is very important about this last scene that I haven't really thought about until I've watched it again and again. Basically, in that last scene, the TT girl, the mom, was grabbing stuff from the drawer. She was grabbing money, and she was getting ready to leave. And the girl said, "Go back, get more." In that time it took her to go back and get more, if they had already left, they would have made it out of the door before the cops get there. Mm-hmm. So in a way, this is a character-based decision, but I think on a narrative level, it's presented because greed, wanting more, needing, and whatever you want to take that as, but their kind of crassness in a situation made it less efficient. And whatever you want to take that as narratively, what it's saying morally, I think you can draw your lines or whatever, but I mean, they're also going to make their sacrifices. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they did necessarily anything wrong or necessarily I wouldn't have done. But I'm just like, because honestly, I found myself in Cleo being like, this is our last run. Go get some more. It's not our damn fault that the cops showed up in the back. We didn't know that there was a briefing happening there. That's the only reason these cops are there. How quick should I be?
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm saying is, should have shot. But that's something I could have said multiple times in my life. So I'm not blaming them for not shooting.
Okay, we're at the pivotal bank robbery.
Oh! Nope, he didn't shoot.
Okay. So the movie is done.
Oh my fucking God.
What do you think?
At least I wish I got a trigger warning. But other than that, that's
Trigger
good.
warning about what? Black life?
Sexual assault,
I mean,
black violence around the police. It's just a little nice. I mean, all I got was an R rated. And all I got was a shrug. So that's fine.
It's a movie about black people robbing banks. where is it gonna go?
You're right. That's my fault.
And
My bad.
I don't mean. I respect what you're saying, but I'm also like trigger warning.
It was half a joke, but
Yeah,
you took it
yeah.
so seriously. I was like, I'm gonna take it serious.
Yeah, no, I respect both sides.
Same. Honestly, it's the duality of.
Yeah, I think watching it again, it's a dark ending. It's a dark ending, but in a way, I respected what it mostly showed you along the way. Because honestly, I mean, I can't even. This is a weird correlation. I haven't seen Quinn and Slim yet. I don't want to see it. From what I heard of it, I don't know. I feel like I'm just like, I don't trust Lena Waithe. So I don't want to watch you do a different version of this. But this movie, I'm kind of like, I like these characters, honestly. I like these characters. I don't think they did everything perfectly. And I think it's really fucking sad by the end. Because when I watch this, I'm just like, if any part of the system had helped them along the way, they would not be where they are. And that, I don't know, it's just fucking horrible. Ugh.
A part of what I love about this was that it was sparked, at least a little bit. I mean, not love. Okay, love is a strong word.
What do you appreciate?
What I appreciate from this is that it started from Black Death, and what they took from it was not we go into the streets, and it is we attack capital. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it is, and that doesn't even need to be, for me to appreciate that, it doesn't need to be an inherently political thing. I don't know what these writers were thinking. I don't know what every bank robber was thinking. But I know for a fact that it's an attack on capital in a way that destabilizes insurance in certain matters.
Yeah.
That make it more unreliable.
Yeah.
And make the whole system, therefore, a bit more unreliable.
Yeah, and I like that the movie is built into the logic of these women are being exploited. We see it. They see it. What they're doing is a justifiable or a reasonable reaction in terms of literally at the very end when the cop could have chosen the last person. Some part of him said, I know that this is fucked up. And why was that even there? It was there for a reason. Yeah, actually, I take it back. I don't want to set it off, too. I feel like they would fuck this shit up upways, sideways. They put Lena Waithe in the lead role. They put Awkwafina in one of the lead roles. They put Zoe Saldana and darker skin tone in one of the lead roles. And they would just call it a day. I don't want that for my people. So no, I don't want to set it off, too. Unless it's like a indie director that...
Unless it's you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll take that. Oh, okay. Are we done? Are we done? I feel like I'm like, ooh, I need to drink more or eat something or.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm done.
Hey listeners, this is Prince here, and I'm here to give you a reminder that if you want to support the Dugout and our anarchist musings about the world, politics, and culture, you can find us in a couple of ways. When you support us on Patreon, you get early access to episodes and special live streams. So to do that, head to patreon.com/the Dugout Pod. Throw in your support and let's keep the vibes going. And then if you want to follow us on social media, on Instagram or TikTok, find us at The Dugout Pod to hear our behind the scenes musings. Sometimes we share some weird reading. Sometimes we're smoking it down and you can join us. But in general, sharing is caring. So let people you know about the Dugout Podcast. If there's particular episodes that you think someone might get some kind of wisdom or knowledge from, send it to them. And find us online and stay tuned for another episode.